It's funny. I was just thinking the other day about how much information like comes at us all the time. It's
Mm.
like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
And I try to stay organized. I really do, but it's tough. Apps, different note-taking systems, nothing really seems to quite do the trick.
Right.
And I was talking to a friend about this, and they're like, "Have you tried a Listallion journal?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I know Listallion. They're great." But I never really thought about how it could help me process information better. So I thought this would be a fun deep dive.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed by just the sheer volume of stuff that's coming at them all the time.
Yeah.
And so finding a good way to organize that, make sense of it, engage with it is so important. And, from what I've seen, Listallion journals seem like they're kind of purpose built for that.
Yeah. Even just looking at their website, just some of the features that jump out at me. They have numbered pages, a table of contents. It's more than just a notebook.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's kind of like creating your own personal knowledge base,
Yeah.
right? It's not just about order. It's about, I think of it like indexing and cross-referencing. When you learn something new, it really sticks when you can connect it to something you already know.
Right.
And with those numbered pages, you can oh, back on page 37, I talked about this, and now I can see how this new thing connects to that.
Oh, that's so smart.
And then the table of contents, it's like a roadmap. You can always find your way back to those key insights, and you can track your progress. You can see how far you've come intellectually.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they've really just taken this very simple idea of a journal and elevated it to a tool for learning.
Hmm.
And it makes me think about Leonardo da Vinci. I don't know if you've read this, but he had these notebooks and he'd fill them with observations and sketches and ideas.
Yeah, and he had this really interesting system of cross-referencing too, where he would link different pages together with symbols and annotations. It wasn't just a diary, it was almost like his external brain.
Yeah, it was like the repository for all his thoughts. And it's making me think about the paper. They emphasize how good the paper is, 120 GSM paper. And it's supposed to be great for fountain pens, which, you know, it seems like a small detail, but for me, that tactile experience of writing can really make a difference.
I think there's science behind that. There's studies have shown that when you write by hand, especially with a nice pen on good paper, it actually activates different parts of the brain than when you type.
Yeah.
So you get better memory retention, better comprehension. It can even stimulate creativity.
It's so interesting how that works.
Yeah. There's something about that, the feeling of the pen gliding across the page,
Yeah.
the subtle variations and pressure and stroke. It really engages your senses.
It's funny you mention that. My cousin's a journalist. She swears by her Listallion journal for taking notes during interviews. She says the high-quality paper, the smooth writing experience, it helps her stay focused, capture all the nuances of the conversation,
Yeah.
which makes perfect sense when you're trying to really absorb and process all that information. It makes sense that you would want something that would make that as easy and frictionless as possible.
Yeah, I imagine if you were struggling with scratchy paper or ink bleeding through, it would just break your concentration. You wouldn't be able to capture those kind of fleeting thoughts and insights.
Totally. And I'm thinking about the colors, too. They have some really cool names for their colors, like Galloway, khaki cream,
Mm.
clarity blue. I mean, it sounds more like luxury items than just simple notebooks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's intentional. It's you're investing in your intellectual growth. So why not treat yourself to something that feels beautiful and inspiring? It's like the difference between, eating out of a takeout container versus having a beautifully set table.
Right. It elevates the whole experience.
Exactly. And I think there's something to that.
Yeah, definitely. I was also reading on their website about this woman named Lucy. And she was talking about how using a Listallion journal helped her go from feeling really overwhelmed to feeling more in control of her thoughts and ideas.
Oh, I'd love to hear about Lucy's story. What was it about her experience that really resonated with you? Oh, I'd love to hear about Lucy's story. What was it about her experience that really resonated with you?
Well, she was juggling a lot,
Uh,
demanding job, family. She was also trying to make time for writing, which I thought was interesting.
mhm.
And she just felt like her mind was constantly racing and she was having trouble focusing.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
And she started using the Listallion journal to try to kind of get organized, set priorities.
Right.
And she talks about how just the simple act of writing things down helped her to declutter her mind,
Yeah.
kind of create a sense of calm.
Yeah, I think that's a really common experience when we try to hold everything in our heads. It's cognitive overload.
Right.
And journaling can be such a great way to just kind of offload some of that. And it frees up mental bandwidth for, deeper thinking.
Yeah. And what I thought was really interesting is she wasn't just using it to manage her to-do list, but also to kind of nurture her creative side.
Oh, interesting.
She started using some of those journaling prompts like what inspires me or what am I grateful for, those kinds of things.
Yeah, prompts can be so powerful for sparking creativity and self-reflection. They give you a starting point, a springboard for deeper thinking, and it can help you tap into, parts of yourself that you might not be aware of.
It's true. It's like a little nudge, to get you
Yeah.
thinking in a different way.
Right. Yeah, and Listallion, they seem to get that. They have, on their website, they have a whole section on journaling tips and prompts.
Yeah. They have a whole section on effective journaling techniques. They talk about setting a routine, organizing with headings, experimenting with different tools.
Nice.
It's really about creating a practice,
Yeah, right.
not just using the journal.
Yeah. And I'm glad they emphasize routine because I think consistency is key
Right.
when it comes to building any habit, especially one that involves introspection and self-discovery. Just like, we set aside time for exercise or meals, setting aside a few minutes each day for journaling can have a huge impact on your mental clarity and your emotional well-being.
It's funny. I used to think journaling was just for, like angsty teenagers or like super organized people.
Mm.
But now I'm starting to see it as a tool for really anyone. If you want to learn more effectively, process your emotions, just make sense of the world.
Yeah. It's a misconception, I think, that it's only for certain personality types. It really is a practice that transcends age, profession, background. At its core, it's about self-awareness and creating a space for personal growth.
Yeah. And not just personal growth. I think it can be helpful for professional development too, right?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of, successful entrepreneurs and leaders swear by journaling as a tool for problem solving, decision making, strategic planning. Richard Branson, for example.
Oh, yeah. He's a big journaler.
Huge proponent of journaling. He credits his daily journaling habit with helping him to clarify his goals, track his progress, stay focused on his vision.
So it's like having a personal board of advisors,
Yeah.
but just in the pages of your journal.
Right. And it really highlights the transformative power of getting your thoughts out of your head and onto paper, because then you can see them from a new perspective, analyze them more objectively. And you can start to identify patterns and insights that you might have missed otherwise.
So true. And speaking of insights, Listallion on their website, they talk about how their journals are designed to work well with different journaling techniques, including bullet journaling.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you're a fan of bullet journaling, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Like how do you think Listallion journals might enhance the bullet journaling experience?
Well, bullet journaling is all about creating a customizable system that integrates planning, scheduling, note-taking, reflection. And what I like about Listallion journals is that they have features that naturally complement that approach.
Yeah.
So the dotted pages, for example, those provide a really subtle grid, and it's perfect for creating those, visually appealing bullet journal layouts. But it still allows for free-flowing writing and sketching.
Yeah.
It's like they've struck this balance between structure and flexibility, which kind of appeals to, both the analytical and the creative sides of our brain.
Yeah. And then the paper. Because bullet journaling can get pretty intense.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
can use, colored pens, markers, even watercolors.
Mm-hmm.
And you want a paper that's going to hold up to that.
Right. And the cover.
Yeah.
You're carrying it around with you everywhere.
Yeah. It's got to be durable. It's got to be able to withstand, being tossed in your bag.
Yeah. And, it's making me think about my sister. She uses a Listallion journal. She's a very visual learner. And she incorporates a lot of drawings, diagrams into her notes.
Oh, cool.
And she loves the thick, smooth paper. She says it makes it a joy to sketch and doodle.
Oh, yeah.
And she uses different colored pens to, categorize information and highlight things.
Yeah. That's a great example of how how these journals can be adapted to different learning styles and preferences.
Right.
It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's about providing a foundation, a high-quality foundation that you can then personalize.
Exactly. And, it makes me wonder if this focus on quality and craftsmanship might actually enhance the learning process.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for the psychological impact of using tools that feel good in your hand, that
Yeah.
that inspire a sense of care and attention.
It's true, and when you value your learning tools, I think it can make you appreciate the knowledge even more.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like the difference between listening to music on a tunny phone speaker versus a high-fidelity sound system.
Right. Yeah, the music is the same, but the quality of the experience changes everything.
Exactly. And, you were saying earlier how Listallion, they incorporate elements of mindfulness and self-care into their approach.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, one thing that sets them apart is they really emphasize the holistic benefits of journaling. So they offer like a curated collection of guided journal prompts and affirmations specifically designed to promote mindfulness and self-reflection. So, for example, one prompt encourages you to list 3 things you're grateful for each day, which is a practice that's known to boost happiness and well-being.
That's really nice. It's like a little reminder
Right.
to appreciate the good things.
Yeah, exactly. And this focus on mindfulness is something that I find really appealing. In today's world, it's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and the constant stream of information, and journaling offers us a way to slow down, to connect with ourselves, to cultivate a sense of peace and presence.
It's almost like a form of meditation,
Yeah,
isn't it? To kind of quiet the mind.
totally. And this connection between journaling and mindfulness is something that I think more and more people are starting to recognize.
Yeah.
It's not just about, writing down your to-do list or processing your thoughts. It's about creating a space for introspection, self-discovery, personal growth.
You've really got me rethinking my whole approach to journaling. It's not just about, capturing information. It's about engaging with it, connecting it to my own experiences,
Right.
and using it to shape my understanding of the world.
That's the beauty of it. It's a deeply personal practice. And there's no right or wrong way to do it.
Right.
It's about finding what works for you. Experimenting and allowing it to evolve as you do.
Speaking of evolution, one thing that I thought was interesting on the Listallion website is they talk about the long-term benefits of journaling.
Yeah.
It's an investment, not just for today,
Yeah.
but for your growth over time.
That's such an important point. Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, but journaling offers us a way to connect with our future selves. It's like planting a seed that grows with you.
And then you can look back on it and see how much you've changed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so insightful to see how your perspective has shifted, what challenges you've overcome, what patterns emerge. It's like having a conversation with your past self.
Yeah. And not just that, it's also a way to track your progress toward goals.
All right.
Celebrate your accomplishments.
Yeah.
Learn from your setbacks. It's a tangible record of your journey.
Yeah. It's funny, my aunt, she told me this story about how she used her Listallion journal to achieve a lifelong dream.
Oh, wow.
She always wanted to open a bookstore,
Yeah.
but it always felt like just a dream,
Mm-hmm.
And then she started using her journal to map out her vision.
Nice.
She would sketch out ideas for the layout, jot down book recommendations, even brainstorm names for the business.
I love that, using the journal as a creative incubator.
Yeah. And the more she wrote and planned, the more real it became.
Right.
It went from this vague idea to a concrete plan.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? She did it. She opened her bookstore
Wow, that's amazing.
a few years ago. And it's been a huge success.
That's so inspiring. It shows how journaling can really bridge that gap between aspiration and action.
Yet it's not just about passively dreaming. It's about taking those steps.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes back to those key features.
Right.
The paper that's amazing to write on, the numbered pages, the table of contents, that durable cover. It all adds up to an experience that feels both luxurious and practical.
Yeah, it's a great combination. And it's worth noting that, we're not promoting a specific brand here.
Right.
It's about recognizing the power of intentional journaling, regardless of what tools you choose. But, Listallion does offer some unique features that based on what we've talked about, can really enhance the
Oh,
experience.
for sure. It's like you could journal scraps of paper
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
wanted to.
You could.
But having a dedicated, high-quality journal, it makes it so much more enjoyable and effective.
Yeah, it's like treating yourself to a little luxury, which in turn motivates you to show up for yourself
Right, yeah.
and for your goals.
You know, there's one more thing about Listallion journals that we haven't talked on.
Oh, okay.
And I'm actually really curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What is it?
Well, it's the way they incorporate elements of community into the journaling experience.
Oh, community. Interesting.
Well, it's the way they incorporate elements of community into the journaling experience.
Oh, community. Interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So they've cultivated this whole online community of journal enthusiasts. They have a blog with tips and prompts. They host workshops and challenges. And they even have a forum where people can connect and share their experiences.
That's really cool. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because journaling can often feel like a very solitary pursuit.
Yeah.
So to have that space to connect with others who get it, I think could be really powerful.
And I think it speaks to this larger trend of journaling becoming more social and interactive.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just for personal reflection anymore. It's a way to connect with people who share similar interests or goals. It's like joining a fitness class versus working out at home alone.
Right, right. That sense of community can be really motivating.
Yeah. It makes me think of my friend. He's a musician, and he started using a Listallion journal to document his songwriting process,
Okay.
track his progress. And at first, he was kind of hesitant to share his work,
Mm-hmm.
but then he found the Listallion community online, and he started posting snippets of his lyrics, getting feedback from other musicians.
Oh, wow.
And it's been incredible to see how that's boosted his confidence.
That's great. Yeah, it's amazing how just sharing your work with others can help you grow as a creative person.
Totally. And I think it speaks to the power of vulnerability. You know, when you open yourself up, you allow yourself to be seen, it can really unlock something.
Yeah.
It's making me think about all the ways I could use a Listallion journal myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe I could start a gratitude journal
Mm-hmm.
or use it to brainstorm ideas for my next project,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even document my journey of learning a new skill.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities. I mean, a journal is a blank slate, right? You can do whatever you want with it.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you have the support of the community too, which is really nice.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's no right or wrong way to journal. It's all about finding what works for you and letting it evolve.
You know, it's funny. We started this deep dive talking about feeling overwhelmed by information.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're talking about this simple notebook and how it can help us make sense of everything, connect with others, and even achieve our dreams.
It is kind of a beautiful paradox, you know, in this world of constant digital stimulation, there's something really grounding about putting pen to paper.
Yeah,
And, you know, a well-designed journal like the ones Listallion makes, I think can be a really great guide and companion on that journey.
totally.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Listallion journals,
Mm-hmm.
what is the one key takeaway that you hope our listener will remember?
For me, it's just the understanding that a journal is so much more than just a collection of pages.
Yeah.
It's a tool for personal growth, a canvas for creativity, and it's a sanctuary for self-expression.
So true.
And while the choice of journal is ultimately a personal one, Listallion offers a really compelling blend of quality, functionality, thoughtful design, and community.
Absolutely. And for me, it's the reminder that no matter how busy life gets, it's always valuable to take a moment to pause, reflect, and connect with ourselves. And I think a Listallion journal can be the perfect invitation to do that. So to our listeners, I encourage you to explore the world of journaling, discover what resonates with you, and, you know, maybe even treat yourself to a Listallion. You never know what insights and inspiration await.
Happy journaling.